in here. Double check, double check. Let's see, did we make it? Let's see, we're gonna start and do a refresh. I know, yes, we are live. Love it. Okay, so before we get going, I'm just gonna pop this into our shared Telegram so you have the link, and then we'll get going. I love it now. The streams on Abstract just have your username attached to them. So it used to be all numbers, and now it just says Fred. Like I feel like I could sell that space, as like
Nice.
Fred was here, So welcome everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Spredict Live. My name is Fred Endy. I am one of the three founders of Spredict. For those who are tuning in for the first time, if you're not familiar with what we do at Spredict, we are an evolved PredictFi platform. And our goal is to really flip the script on what we think about when we talk about gaming in Web3 and even Web2, how we think about making predictions using our wonderful friend, the web. Spredict is built around three foundations. The first of which is to change the way we think about gaming in terms of time. We don't operate like a traditional gaming platform. There are no bets. We're not a casino. Instead, we're a subscription service aiming to be the Netflix of predictive gaming. You join us to subscribe for a month or a season in a sport or any type of event that you find yourself engaged in, and you play for that period of time, earning points towards prizes as you go. Our games are also different. We are not simply pick the winner style games. In fact, each of the games that we offer has a different element that changes the dynamic. It's not simply going with who you think you will win, it's also incorporating the different structures we've built into the design of our game. For instance, our favorite feature operates such that if you go with the chalk, if you make a pick that supports what other people who are playing are making, and you win, you earn less points than if you make a contrarian play and are correct, right? So as you engage with our platform, right, your choices involve more than just a simple decision about who may end up on top. Right? And then the third element that we provide is we are all about building community engagement for projects, lounges, and groups. We can create custom prediction pools for anyone who wants to collaboratively and competitively game. And so if you are a project owner, lounge owner, and are interested in putting together prediction pools to utilize with your groups, your members, you can work with us to set them up and build engagement within your own communities. And so that's a little bit about us. We run Spredict Live every week following a number of different sporting events. At this point in time, focusing on MMA with UFC events. Soon, in a few short weeks, we'll be hosting our F1 season. And for those of you who are F1 lovers and are getting set for the 2025 season, stay tuned for opportunities to join us for those streams as well. Very excited to be joined by Super Soze today. It's early evening for him, while it's still just kind of the beginning of the afternoon here for me in New York. Super Soze is representing Numa Social, and love to turn over to you to talk a little bit about who you are, what you're working, and what you're building.
Boom. Thanks, Fred. Yeah, really love what you guys are doing. I love your take on like these markets. I think it's absolutely amazing. My name is Chris, or AKA Super Soze, or Soze on Twitter. I've been in the Web3 space for way too long. But yeah, it's the only place that I will live in for the rest of time. It's my favorite playground. I got into Bitcoin in 2014, I think, and from there was down the rabbit hole with decentralized systems and how Bitcoin worked. And 2017 actually launched my first project. It was an AI project. So before the super hype of artificial intelligence, that project is still going, very successful. We worked with the United Nations, Kraft Heinz, a whole bunch of
Oh,
different
awesome.
people. And from there, I'm a startup guy. I like to build products and solve problems. So that project went on. I moved on from that role and built a bunch of other things. I built a data analytics tool for Twitter Spaces called Super Spaces, which a lot of people in the space would know. That shut down about a year ago. Couldn't monetize on it, but we love to solve a lot of the problems, and lots of people loved it. Built the very first no-code NFT generator called Launch My NFT.
Oh,
That was fantastic. I think we did about 9 million mints on that platform. So I've been in the space
amazing.
just building and finding different things to go on. But since AI has become really intelligent over the last few months, I've decided to jump back into that in a long-term 10, 15-year vision of where I feel AI is going, and that's where Numa Social comes into the game. So basically, we're building a MEC network, which that's basically a mobile edge computing network. And we do this by playing a game, a social game. And so we build a mobile app on Unity, and you'll be able to compete with different communities, generating compute for all kinds of different purposes. But a lot of the purposes that we're looking to do, it's a social game, as in social with friends and communities, but it's also a social, tech for good platform. So a lot of the things that we will be doing is pointing this compute to like sensory data for IoT initiatives for the United Nations, maybe tracking and tracing flood data in the country of Georgia,
Great.
or looking into a whole bunch of different initiatives. From there, we have some of the best AI devs, I feel, right now in the space building real AI agents, not just tokens behind some silly little, AI agent that was put together in a weekend. So we really want to build community tools to help communities really connect deeper and better through Numa Social as well. So we got the compute side, and then we want to build products and services that will fuel communities in the Web3 space and beyond. And that's a little bit about Numa Social. We basically started this initiative only a few weeks ago. And so we decide this is very consumer facing, especially with the social element of this and building on Unity. So we will build on Abstract. Oh, I just kicked my camera there. But yeah, we will build on Abstract. So really, really, really excited to join that family, but just to be in the space and build things that I love. So yeah, and thanks for having me here, because my second hobby, there's only two things I know about. That's decentralized systems and crypto, and fighting in UFC. So this is the perfect show for me.
So amazing. And so a couple questions. So in terms of kind of your timeline and people who want to engage, are there elements to Numa Social that they can currently take part in? Are there pieces that you would advise people who want to learn more that they could explore at this point in time?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best way is to jump onto our Telegram mini app that we built a few weeks ago, just to fire up the engagement and get things started. If you go there, it's not a tap game like that whole weird meta. I don't know how people were tapping so much. My IQ was going down as fast as I was tapping. So we built a scratch card game because everybody likes scratch cards. And so in that game are a bunch of little assets and little things that you can get that can get you prepared for when we release our app. We will have like a private alpha beta kind of version come out in the next couple of weeks. And then we have a very I think it's a really fun thing. NFTs have been my thing for a long time. We call them adaptive compute assets, ACAs. And basically, these will be stakeable assets and basically NFTs, but they grow and adapt with time with your usage of our app and your participation within our ecosystem. So we'll be dropping those, 2,400 of them, 2,444 of those in the next couple of weeks, I think. We will add more because we do want to scale this and get other people in on the action. But so we'll start there. But we're looking at around the beginning of April to launch this with either a whole bunch of communities of the Abstract chain, or we just might go big. We've been talking to Azuki, we've been talking to Doodles, we've been talking to the big
Nice.
boys, and we might start with like the super blue chips for the first season, and then just go from there. But yeah, I think it'll be an exciting, fun way to participate in the future of AI and compute. And so, yeah.
I love that. That is great. And what made you like decide to go in this direction? Like what was your thinking behind starting Numa Social? I mean, it's
Yeah,
I
that
love the focus for good, right? And I think that sometimes in this space, there's not as much of an emphasis on that as there should be. So I'm curious about like what led you to go in that direction?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I've just been in this space for such a long time, and for me, it's never been about the gains and the plays and the charts and all of this stuff. When I learned about Bitcoin, it was about, the like the it sounds cliche, but banking the unbanked, like these social elements about how powerful decentralized systems are and distributed systems can be. And so for me, I was always exploring these things. And with our first project, we had about 10,000 people come on board that were doing data structuring for data sets, right? Just very simple things, labeling pictures and
Mm,
putting boxes around, damaged car images or stuff like this. And people were able to connect their wallet and earn a small piece of cryptocurrency anywhere in the world. And when I found out there was like 90 different countries being represented in our network, it blew my mind like completely
so cool.
wide open. And I went, that's it. I need to talk to bigger people. And it was weird because I came from a sports background. I was a kickboxer in Thailand, and like that was my thing. I wasn't a tech guy. And all of a sudden I was talking to vice presidents of countries. I was talking to high ranking members of the United Nations. And it was
So
because I
awesome.
was just on a mission. And so we actually did an NFT collection with 136 refugees through the United Nations, and we sold out of that. We called it Pieces, and it had to do with artwork because obviously there would be language barriers and stuff like that. And it ended up raking in 400,000 for Tech for Good. And since
Whoa.
then, it's just I've always trying to figure out how to connect this with good elements, and so Numa came. I see all of these different apps that are talking about connecting your devices and pooling your compute and all of this stuff, and I see it all, and I know that most of those projects are going to be gone, when the bear market comes, and there's a bunch of big cash grabs, and I just felt like it's my time to come back into the AI space. I've been in like a lot of different live community building space, initiatives, and I just think I can compete and take the lion's share. So Numa Social is going to be an app that does it a bit differently. I think it's not going to be one of those ones connect your devices and forget it, but it's going to be like, let's play a game, let's have fun, and let's build on Unity so we can continue that fun, we can build it out, and then connect, different tools to continue to grow different communities together, and then point that compute and point those things in places that are going to help others, because nothing could feel better than playing a game knowing that you're helping, people maybe live, which would be
Yeah.
amazing.
I mean, I love it. It makes me think of like the start of Kiva and the microloan elements like years ago, right? In helping raise awareness. We it's I mean it's so fascinating, right? So I'm a New Yorker, right? Living in a country that the entire world thinks is like so selfish, generally speaking, right? I mean, it's like part of the American way generally. And one of the things that my connections in the space have allowed me to do is build relationships with people who are outside of the U.S. Right, like the um, the Web3 space. Uh, yes, right. Like we focus on the financial side, right, and the potential money making elements too. And at the same time, what's been so great has been the awareness side of connecting with people who are driven by some of the same foundational beliefs and who have come across DeFi through like very different cultures and like ways of living, right? And so it's helped to open my eyes. In fact, Max and Johan, who are the other two founders of Spredict, are both French, right? I'm the only American on the team, right? And I mean, like, how often does an American say he's the only American involved in anything, right? It's just such a weird um, a weird way to engage, at least in like the American psyche. So what's been fantastic for me is the connections that I've built right in the space, and yes, right, I think there's a lot of financial benefit too, but like you said, it doesn't have to just be financial benefit for me, right? There's a lot of good the space can do beyond the individualistic side, and so I really appreciate projects and communities that are looking beyond the scope of how do we generate revenue for ourselves, right? And instead focus on how do we generate revenue for a wider kind of swath of the world and raise awareness around some of the issues that maybe we're not thinking about in our own little bubbles, but we should be because of the implications for what's happening around the world. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, listen, my first mentor said if you want to be a millionaire, the best way to get there is to create a bunch of millionaires. And so like the mission here, I understand everybody's in this to make some money, but I think like if we can make other people a bunch of money, then the result will be money for us as well. And so why not, try to make tons and tons of different people money in all kinds of different ways. One of the stories that like really affected me the most is we had what we called micro taskers that were doing, this data structuring and getting paid out on, in our native currency called EFX back in 2018, 2019. Anyways, 2019, the price is very low, and a lot of these data structurers were in our Discord, part of our community, and we would, communicate with them, on the daily. And this one girl was just collecting all of this EFX, and she was doing it all day long. And she says, "Well, my EFX is going down. The value of that EFX is going down, but I have my side job and I'm doing my job, and I come and I do this all day long, and hopefully the price goes back up." When the bull market came and that price like did a 50x or something, she was able to buy an apartment. This was a girl in
Amazing.
Russia who was living, a very modest life and, paycheck to paycheck, and then really like hit it big. She was sending pictures of her apartment. It was not
Oh,
small. It was
so cool.
absolutely huge. Her dog was having better food. Her life was just better. And that was one story of thousands that was in that network. And that was a decentralized initiative back in 2017 that started. I don't see
Awesome.
enough of them, and we need to like, I think we need to start thinking more like that. And if we don't, then I'll just do it for everybody because I think it's important.
I I'm with you. I have to tell you and this is yes, this is in the Web3 space, but also just the way I am. I take great joy from connecting people to what they want or what they need, right? I'm much more driven by that relational side, right? And so I'm the idea that we can leverage the work we're doing to help people get yes, like what they want, but also like what they need is huge, right? And one of my hopes, I I mean, I'm also a pragmatist. I'm not an optimist by trade, but as a pragmatist, I think that we can get to the space where more people see the Web3 for good side of things, um, and don't have to give up on like the financial gain side, but I would love for there to be a greater percentage of people who are looking through that lens because the potential reach, the opportunity to change people's lives, not just with like money to go on vacations in Bali, but also, and all good for Bali, but also the opportunity for homes, for vehicles, for education. There's just so much there. And so
Well,
I
if you
really
think about
appreciate the
it,
approach.
Fred, if you think about it, like all of the guys in this game that are trying to make money, just think of it this way. Who's the richest dude in the world? It's Elon Musk. He's doing tech for good. He's building solar panels all over the place.
Right.
He's doing rockets. He's getting, he's getting Wi-Fi to places that need it the most. He's got electric vehicles. He's changing the world, and he's the richest dude in the world. So maybe participate in those kind of things, and you'll get
Yeah.
richer quicker. I mean, it's really simple math, because governments will get behind it. They'll give you all kinds of subsidies. There's all kinds of ways to make money, but I think if you want to get super uber rich, it's like a lot of people need a lot of help, so build things that a lot of people need. And so yeah, decentralized systems. One other story is like the refugees we worked with, a lot were from Iran, and then they were cut off from the banking system, even in the countries that they were accepted to. They were cut off completely. And as they were working on our platforms, they were earning cryptocurrencies and being able to convert that. And then there was these ATM, Bitcoin machines and stuff like that that they could cash out. And it was like, bang, there you go. Like we're helping people. And imagine being a refugee in a country you don't speak the language, you can't figure out your work situation, you can't even open up a bank to do any kind of financial anything's, but decentralized systems and blockchain solve that. So like get involved, and it's way too slow for my liking. So let's hurry up and get together and make a difference.
Let's go. I love it. I love it. So, one of the things you also said, which led me to raise my eyebrow, and this is so funny, you had shared that you were like a kickboxer, right? You were involved in the MMA space. And what's been so funny, so Max, one of the co-founders, was an amateur kickboxer, right? And then it was last week, I believe, we had one of the team members from Wolf Swap on, who also was an amateur kickboxer. And so it's amazing how many people have been in the MMA space. So talk about like your experience as a fighter. What was it like? How long did you fight? What did you take away from it?
Oh man, all right. Back to these days. So anyways, I was kind of, I've always been an entrepreneur since I was the age of like 6 or whatever. So I was subcontracting for a big company in Canada where I'm originally from. And I'd always loved fighting since a kid, right? Kung Fu movies were my things, horror movies and Kung Fu movies, right? So I always wanted to like, learn Kung Fu to be able to beat up werewolves or whatever. The Karate Kid was one of my favorite movies as well, when I was a kid. And so
Such a
started
good movie.
karate when I was 6 or 7 years old. And, anyways, stayed in the game a little bit, but once I was an entrepreneur building businesses, I kind of lost it. But always watched UFC from UFC one. Always like really enjoyed fighting and watching these sports. And as I sat at my computer sometimes, I just dreamed about going to Thailand and participating in kickboxing. 2007 came, and I was training at this point. Rory McDonald, some pretty high level MMA fighters. I was training at this point quite consistently. And then the 2008 financial crisis came, and I was like, you know what? I'm out with the little money I have left, and I'm going to Thailand. And I was going to do 7 months of just training from the north to the south. And I ended up staying in the north for 9 years, building my own gym and just
Wow.
fighting Thai guys week in and week out, and training people from all over the world, and had one of the top gyms. Like that was the goal as an entrepreneur. It's their national sport in Thailand. So we were way up in the north, and we were competing with some of the big gyms. But we had about 40, 50 students at any given time, and I was
Awesome.
always the late replacement fighter if there needed to be a fighter in there to fight one of these big Thai guys. And so it was a long time ago. Pro, amateur, I don't know what you said, but the guys that I was fighting had 300 plus fights, been fighting since they were two. So
Wow.
I can promise you there was nothing really fun about it. I don't know why I did it. I look back at it. I still would fight to this day, no problem. Jump into the ring with anybody, anytime, and would love to. So if anybody out there knows of a fight, I'm in
Ooh,
short
look at
notice, no
this.
problem. Even UFC, give me a ring. Like I'm 44, so I'm a bit over the hill, but I still feel like I got it. So give me a call. But yeah, that was my thing. And then met a girl, had some kids, and that dream was a little bit over. But yeah, that's what got me into Web3. And funny enough, one of the students from Thailand was a web developer from Amsterdam. I ended up moving to Amsterdam, being part of his agency, and that's kind of how I got into Web3. So, like from fighting to Web3, there
Oh,
was a
so
very,
cool.
very. He was the one that made the website for my gym in Thailand. So it was like just full circle. Life is a weird trip, and
It
yeah,
is.
everything leads to something else. So it was pretty cool.
So amazing. And before we get into talking about fight night and making some picks, I have a couple questions for you. So what what I guess what made you um, well, yeah, no, I think I have the answer to that question actually. So you're now in Portugal, right? So
Correct.
from Canada to Thailand to Amsterdam, right?
To
To Portugal,
Australia,
Australia.
to
Okay.
Amsterdam,
Yeah.
to yeah, all over. Yeah.
So now as a Canadian expat in Portugal now, but from all over, is Portugal like your place? Will you stay? Do you see yourself? Because I knew when we started talking, I knew you were not Portuguese, right? And so, yes, definitely Canadian, right? And are you from from the western portion of Canada?
Yeah,
Where's your home?
I grew up both, Toronto and
Okay.
British Columbia, so
Okay.
Ontario,
So
British
both.
Columbia,
Both sides.
both
Okay.
back and forth. And so, yeah, I would say definitely Portugal is my home base.
Okay.
Thailand is definitely my favorite place in the world, and if anybody asks me
Very
like
cool.
where to go, Thailand's definitely the place. But Portugal, because of my kids, the dream was to get the forever house. I had never had a debt. I had never owned a car, even like a house or anything. And so this is the first time. And this is it. Yeah, this is it for me. Portugal boy. I travel quite a bit because of this industry, but yeah, we're staying here. I have all of my team, so it's not a distributed team. Even I have Singaporean that lives here. I have a Polish guy, Lebanese. My team is very international, but it's all
Amazing.
here, except for a couple that are in different countries. But most of the team are here locally. I have a studio here, media rooms, and our devs and everything else. Yeah.
Super cool. Super cool. So that is an amazing story. And what was your fighting style when you fought? Did
So
you
fighting in Thailand, it was just Muay Thai,
Okay.
just Muay Thai kickboxing. I love jujitsu. Actually, one of our old social media managers was a brown belt, so we got to roll for barbecues on Saturdays and stuff, and
Nice.
that was always fun. And Conor McGregor actually trained for his last 6 fights, and I know he hasn't fought in a long time, but he
Yeah.
trained here in my small little town, which was really bizarre and weird to
Whoa.
find that out. Really strange. Like there's a funny story there. Maybe next time we can talk about that one. But yeah, Muay Thai is my favorite game. Absolutely, definitely, it's the most brutal of all of them. But jiu-jitsu is also, it's actually equal to jiu-jitsu. I love the chess match of it. I love
Yeah.
I love the game. Yeah, but yeah, my fighting style, my preferred fighting style that I feel most comfortable with is just like punching and kicking people.
And would you ever go back to that world, managing a gym, training, or is that like a period of time that you're kind of
Yeah,
moved
it's
on
just a
from?
weird chapter in the book
Okay.
of Chris or Soze. Yeah, I look back at it and it feels like a book that I read of some weird freak that came from Canada and ended up in Thailand in a bamboo bungalow fighting tall guys. So, yeah, it's definitely not my life anymore. Like I said, like if there's celebrity or Web3 fights, karate combat, I've talked to them a few times. If
Oh, I
there's
love it.
ever a need for me to get in there, I'd love to do it again. But no, the gym life and stuff like that is done. My whole dedication to life right now is Web3 for good, and my kids and nothing
I love
outside
it.
of that.
So I know Max is probably listening at this point, and as a Muay Thai fighter too, and someone who loves UFC, he's probably thinking like, oh, we should get Chris going on some sort of celebrity fight. So who
Let's
knows?
go.
Maybe there'll be like a Spredict sponsored opportunity sometime in the near future. We can all meet
Oh,
up in
listen,
Vegas.
I had a Twitter account with like 80, 90,000 followers, but then it got shut off for a variety of reasons. It's still sitting there. I'm waiting to get it back, but now I've got about 1,500 followers, which is, not the most attractive, but believe me, like it will build up. And if you get me in the ring, I can throw down and I can be the heel
Let's
or the
go.
hero or whatever.
I
Like, get
love
me
it.
in there.
I
Like,
love it.
anybody out there got a ring for me to get in? I'll do it. Doesn't matter with who.
All right. So Max, there you go. That's the invite. We're gonna get Chris involved in some sort of like Spredict sponsored fight. Awesome.
That's great.
And the other thing I'll say is for all those who are listening and gonna watch this recording after. Chris is like at all the events. Chris had shared some pictures with us on this Predict team. Like, are you like a UFC groupie? Do you like go to as many events as you can at this point?
Yeah, I love UFC. Like I said, from the very first UFC, my wrestling coach and science teacher was one of the first jiu-jitsu Canadian champions
Whoa.
way back in the day, like way back in the day. And so, sometimes he would make me run down to the video store to get the latest UFC. And that was when UFC was at like UFC 4, 5, 6. And we'd watch them at the back of the classroom and stuff. He was the coolest teacher
Oh,
ever.
awesome.
But yeah, from there, like, yeah, I started going to shows, all the Canadian shows when they were coming up to Canada and stuff. And being in Europe, it's tough to get like over to the American fights and stuff. But every year, me and my team go over to Abu Dhabi for the big events out in Abu Dhabi. So we're there every year. I bring my kids because Abu Dhabi is the greatest place ever
Oh,
for
so
kids as
cool.
well. So it's like I bring my team. We set up all of our all of our gear to work all day long, but we also have some fun. We always know where the fighters are staying, and I often know some of the fighters, so it's easy to find them, hang out with them, and just yeah, hang out. So my boy knows a lot of them. He's 8, and so
Awesome.
yeah.
I love it. I love it. So that is so, so cool. All right. So here we go. We are going to get into talking about tonight's fight night. Right. So here we got our little bell. Here we go. Right. So let's get our picks going. And so just as a for those of you who are huge UFC fans, right? So, Fight Night is happening on west coast of the U.S. In Seattle tonight. A number of great fights across the cards. We're going to focus on four, and we're going to go and we're going to make the picks live, or I'll share more. And for those of you who are listening or who are going to be listening after, you can make your picks as well on our Spredict DApp. And so I just put it up on screen right now. You can go to dap.spredict.io. I'm going to pull up our DApp in a moment, and as we talk about the four fights on the Spredict card, I'll make my picks. There are a couple really interesting storylines. One of the things that uh, is really interesting is we've got a fighter who is kind of like back. He was retiring and then came back and then said he was going to retire again. And so it's always interesting when fighters are trying to decide like on their timelines and whether they're going to stay, right? And then we have a fighter replacement. That's also a really interesting storyline too, right? So we have Font, who's now fighting Matsumoto. He was supposed to fight Dominic Cruz, right? And so that was a switch up. And so it's always interesting to see from a tech side. It's always fun too because sometimes you end up having to switch like the lineup in your DAP or your setup as things switch and change. So, Chris, anything for you that stands out that you're interested in from tonight's fight night?
Yeah, I love this fight card. There's some undercards that I think are cool. But yeah, for the four fights that we're looking at, it is really interesting. It's really unfortunate that Cruz had to pull out of his fight and forced his retirement because he was to fight Rob Font. And so, like you said, we have a late replacement there of a person that I'm pretty sure it's his first UFC fight.
Yep.
So like this is a very interesting part. The fight that I'm most excited about, like hands down for sure, is definitely Brendan Allen and Herenez. They fought before, and I think that matchup for me, plus being like they're big middleweights, I love the middleweights, I love the light heavyweights, I love the bigger guys a little bit more. So, but that fight looks really, really interesting to me, and I think it could be like really, really exciting, or it could be really, really boring because I think one way for one fighter to win it is a boring way to win. But yeah, so yeah, I think like the four fights that we'll talk about are all really, really cool. And we have another newcomer on short notice as well with Julius Walker, who's coming into the UFC light heavyweight. He was planning a fight. I don't know if it was another organization or if it was UFC, but he was planning a fight at heavyweight, and with a 10 days notice or 2 weeks notice has had to cut down. So I don't know if that'll play a part, but he seemed to be a lean heavyweight. So, and then he's fighting Mansfield, which looks to be, a tough veteran. He's been around, and so yeah, it's a fun card. It's fun.
It is. It is. And we love putting these together. You know, I am it's been so fun for me. So I am generally an American football fan. I think I could talk for hours with anyone about American football, right? And I'm generally a sports fan. I love the community side of what sports do, but until recently, have not been a super big F1 or even MMA fan. But what I've loved about working with Max and Johan on Spredict is that it's helped build my kind of awareness of sports that extend beyond our own kind of geography and on our own culture, right? So, like in the US, F1 is not super big. If people are into racing, generally it's NASCAR, right? Which is like the bottom of the barrel in racing sports around the rest of the world, right? And F1 is huge internationally, right? So, it's been so much fun for me to not only learn about sports and who the stars are, but also think strategically about my own predictions, right? And how to go about thinking about the sports, right? So I'm going to share my screen. So let me do that, and then we'll talk a little bit about what we've got going on for these fights. So here we go. Hopefully, Chris, can you see that up on screen?
I can see that up on screen.
Awesome. So, for those of you who are playing at home and are looking to make picks and try out what we're building at Spredict, you can go to dap.spredict.io. And if you go to the upper right, you can click Connect My Wallet. We've got our integration set up for MetaMask, for Phantom, and then for the Abstract Global Wallet. So, I'm just going to connect to my Abstract wallet. Right, you'll get a little pop-up. You can approve the connection, right, and then you'll be able to make your picks. And a couple things that I'm going to just point out on the left-hand side, you'll see the toggles, right. Formula One will go live in a couple weeks. We're also building out our first non-sports ecosystem within the DApp, which will be for crypto price prediction. You'll also be able to purchase your Spredict Pass later on during kind of like the bridge between Q1 and Q2. But if you scroll down, you'll see our fight night options, right? We've got Cejudo versus Yudong, right? And that is kind of where we'll start with our picks. What you'll also see are the stars, right? And those stars represent who the favorites are of all the picks that have come through the DApp so far. You can see where those are placed. And just like I was sharing earlier, the favorite feature is kind of an interesting element we build in. So as you make your picks between Allen and Hernandez, for instance, right, as an example, you might say, hey, I want to go with the chalk and I'm going to pick Allen, but maybe you have a feel that Hernandez will be the winner, right? And let's say that Hernandez does in fact win. If Allen remains as the favorite feature, were you participating for leaderboard points at this time? If you picked the underdog and the underdog won, you'd get additional points towards the leaderboard. So something interesting to think about. So Chris, why don't we start with that first fight, one of the main events of the card, the bantamweight. Bantamweight. Who do you see for Cejudo versus Yudong? What's your thinking for this fight?
Yeah, it's a good fight. It's the classic like grappler versus striker. Yudong is his hands are incredible. Like his striking is really phenomenal. And back in the day when bantamweight came into the UFC, you didn't see many people getting TKOs and especially not KOs. But yeah, Song Yudong is striking is incredible. And then you have Cejudo, who obviously he's an Olympic gold medalist in wrestling. He's a two-division champion in the UFC. Has retired and come back and retired and now come back again, which is a factor that I would definitely factor in. But for this one, if you're asking me my prediction, I would say Yudong, he's got a puncher's chance for sure, in my opinion. I don't know who the favorite is actually. I see the favorite in yours is Cejudo, but in the other books, I think it might be
It is.
Yudong. Yeah,
Yudong is has the line with Vegas. Yep.
yeah. So I think he has a puncher's chance, but I don't think he should be the favorite. I mean, we're talking about an Olympic gold medalist, a two-division champion who has been dominant, and his loss in the UFC, his last loss is against the champ, and he's a wrestler and a grinder, and Yudong's a striker. So I think this is going to go to decision. So Hudo by decision. I think that's an easy pick in my opinion. But you never know. A song could land a nice right hand on the chin.
So I mean it's really interesting when picks are aligned, right? So I am 100% in agreement with you on Cejudo taking this by decision. And Mugi, who is like our journalist friend who lives in this space, right, is in agreement as well, right? So we've got three people who see the fight going to Cejudo by decision. Mugi said that given Cejudo's expertise and experience as a wrestler, he could see it potentially even being a submission on how the fight goes. I would lean more towards uh, the card the about going to a decision. I think one of the things that's really interesting, I find myself often really looking to fighters' experience outside of the MMA circuit to also help influence my picks. I mean, this is a fighter with not only Olympic experience, but Olympic gold medal experience. Right? He is a world accomplished wrestler, and though he is like quote, it's funny, right? Because you're 44 and I'm 45, right? So when we say like older, right, it has a different connotation. But I believe Song is like 4 or 5 years younger, right? So has the edge in age, right? But the thing is, Cejudo also, I think it was one of only 3 or 4 UFC fighters who has also held 2 divisional titles, which to me is insane, right? I mean, that I don't care if somebody has retired and come back and thought about retirement again. That has to stand for something in my book, as good as Song Yadong is, right? So in this case, despite Yudong's ability as an amazing striker and also his age benefit, I just can't get behind the Vegas money on this one. In fact, it seems like a very odd line to me. When I checked earlier this week, he Song Yadong was something at like 280, right? So Vegas was really behind him on it, and I it's hard for me to fade Vegas. In across all sports, the way the line makers work is so amazing to me, right? But I just don't see it on this one. I'm not sure what I'm missing. He may end up winning, but I would not take the chalk at that level. It seems really bizarre to me.
I completely agree. I was very surprised to see that as well. And maybe Vegas knows something that we don't, like maybe there's some whispers, and I haven't looked deeply into like the training camps and
Right.
some of the rumors. So maybe I'm missing something there. But if I'm not missing anything, then it's really bizarre odds. I just think this one, like out of, you know, most fights, like this one for me is like go all in. But yeah,
Yeah,
I will.
in fact, I will be after we're done chatting. I will be opening my BetMGM app and looking to place a little bit of a bet on this one because it just doesn't seem. Um, yeah,
I'm sure it'll tighten up like before the
absolutely.
fight, and probably because of you and me,
Yeah,
but like it will tighten up for sure
I
because
know.
I think a lot of people like me seeing this today, it just didn't make sense.
Right. I'm with you. So awesome. All right. So we all seem to be in agreement on this bantamweight main event. I'd love to hop down to the one you said you're super interested in, Allen versus Hernandez. What are you thinking? What's standing out for you in this one?
Oh man, yeah, this one's great. These guys are both like really, really high level, just fighters, like complete fighters. They both have good striking. I would give striking advantage to Allen. I think he's
Yeah.
longer. I also think like he's just a thuggy kind of fighter, you know,
Yes.
like there's footage of him like in casinos punching, you know, other UFC fighters, and
He fights
he's just
people
like
all the time. Like he just
right,
you could be at a at like a McDonald's and look at
yeah.
him and he'd punch you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd punch him back, so be careful, Alan. But yeah, so I'd be in so much trouble. That's one I would walk away from for sure. But yeah, so he's more like the Diaz, like just doesn't care kind of fighter, and getting in there. And so I think that's his attitude and his aura is really exciting to me, and I think it brings a little bit of magic. Hernandez is. Yeah, he's great everywhere. But also, like Brendan Allen's jiu-jitsu is absolutely incredible. Out of his
Yeah,
last 8 fights, 6 of them have been a rear naked choke. So if he gets on your back,
it's
like I
crazy.
don't know
Yeah.
how he's able to slip in these things, but be very, very careful of the rear naked choke there. And he's 29 years old, so I think I don't know the age difference here, but I think they're both in and around the same age.
Yes.
But so Allen looks good everywhere, but Hernandez, he's a grinder, and I think the key to victory for him is definitely in the clinch and his wrestling. I think his wrestling is really good if he can get on him and make him tired. Because I've seen with Allen last rounds, you know, rounds 3 and you know these main events where he's in round 5, he's really losing steam. So I think Hernandez's way to victory is definitely the grinding on him, taking him down, and that could result in a bit of a boring fight, but that will definitely leap him up into the rankings pretty good. So my bet here is Hernandez, and I don't like to say it. I'd love to see Allen win because I think he's a star. I think he's a movie star in the world of MMA. I really like him in MMA, but I'm going Hernandez by this one, and I think he's also the favorite here. It is last minute, so you can incorporate that into your betting as well.
Yeah.
He's a replacement fighter as well. But I think Vegas also has him as the favorite on this one, and I agree with that. And so
Yeah.
I'll go Hernandez by decision.
Excellent. Yeah. I'm in agreement with you too. This is one where I am taking the chalk and going with Hernandez for the win. I I have to say first I think Allen is a movie star, right? I mean, he's got that quality. I've seen him wear like animal pelts a number of times, right? And just stroll around like all decked out. He brings a little bit of like the Conor McGregor swagger, right, to his demeanor and how he kind of like holds himself. And I think in in MMA, particularly UFC, that goes for a lot, right? I feel that fighters who can capitalize on audience engagement and larger community engagement can really swing fights in MMA, sometimes much easier than a lot of other sports. I really do feel that there's a significant impact that the crowd has on fight direction, particularly as fights go longer, right? I think with these two guys in particular, as you hinted at, this could be a fight that continues. I think Allen's ability to captivate people is huge. And of course, right, not to take away from, as you shared, he is like a jujitsu master. I mean, he really, really is a solid jujitsu study. I, I think the piece for me, I I love, and I do love both of these fighters' win consistency. Right, they can put together strings of wins fairly solidly. I find sometimes, right, it's really hard, and I know it depends on the matchup, but I think you have to factor in motivation and edge going into fights and what, if a fighter is going into a fight coming off of 6 hard earned wins. I think that it's almost like starting with I'm thinking of like old school video gaming, right? Like in Mario Brothers, having like a superstar on your side, right? It gives you a little bit of like invincibility, at least at the start. Anything can happen, right? So, y- you know, Hernandez, right, coming off a string of 6 wins, right, stretching back to 2021 or 2022, and that's huge, right? I also love his nickname, right? Fluffy, is a fantastic nickname for a MMA fighter. But what I do appreciate from him. And the reason why I think I'm picking him is as I watch a lot of his fights, there's a level of intensity that Hernandez brings that I don't always see in other fighters. He really, really does fight hard. And he's also a fighter. It's easier for me to say. It's probably more realistic for you to speak to because you've been in the ring before. But there are some fighters who also it's like they just don't give up. They have this level of ability to fight against adversity, even when it looks like a match is shifting and going in another direction. And I love that from Hernandez's side. I think that he is somebody who can easily go the distance, even up against a really, really strong fighter like Allen. I have Hernandez to win, likely by decision as well. I will tell you that our friend Mugi has Allen to win, going the distance, and likely by decision as well. So for the two of us and for our friend Mugi, it's clear that we see this being a longer fight. The two of us feel like Hernandez is going to pull it out, whereas our friend Mugi sees Allen winning by decision. And I do think this is probably one where, unlike when we were talking before about well, I lost the screen. Unlike what we were talking before, where we would go with with Cejudo, right? And maybe even take the money on it. This is not one that I would bet. I don't see myself taking that bet in this fight.
I agree. I think this should be a pretty exciting fight. And if you're a really big fight fan, I think you'll love it, even if it looks a little bit boring to the uneducated fans, because I think if Hernandez is going to take this one, it's going to be a lot of grinding up against the fence, taking him down and keeping a really good heavy hip position on top. Because you definitely don't want to be on the bottom of Allen, and you certainly don't want to get him on your back. So it's going to be a skill-based thing. They can both throw punches really well, so there's definitely fireworks that could happen. But yeah, if I had to bet, it's Hernandez, but definitely this one should be fun.
Awesome. So let's go on. I just realized our our DAP has Silva versus Bagdasaryan in there, and I don't. That's interesting for me. We can talk about that one or talk about Menefield and Walker because that's the one that I had was thinking of. So I'm not sure why that's up on our DAP. But let's go to Font and Matsumoto. Who are you seeing there?
Yeah, this one's fun and cool for me as well. I always love when new people come into the mix, so I had to do a little bit of research on Matsumoto, and I also love Rob Font. Rob Font's been in the UFC since like 1947 or something. He's just tried and tested. He's so tough. He's been around forever. I think this is his 30th fight. I think most of those fights were in the UFC. He's fought everybody, Figueiredo and Marlon Vera. He's fought Aldo. He's Garbrandt. I mean, he's fought everybody. Sandhagen, you name it, he's fought them, and so he's really tried and tested. He is getting into the later years, and where the sweet spot of, like, your peak as a MMA fighter is, I think it's a big wide gap. It just depends on so many different things, but there's a lot of miles on this one. He's 37 years old, and
Yes.
I think he's not coming in as the favorite, but I mean, it's Rob Font, and he's only fighting the very top best guys in the game. And so then we have Juan Matsumoto that comes from Brazil. He comes from a great kickboxing fight camp. He comes, I think he's a black belt jiu-jitsu. I think over his last 9 fights, it's been decision or submission. So he's really a good grappler. I think early in his career, he had some TKOs and stuff, which often happen early in the careers of people. But then as they move on, they find their bread and butter. So it looks like his ground game is really, really good. I think Rob Font can fight anywhere, anytime, any position. So yeah, this guy last minute, I think he's a couple weeks notice as well.
Yeah.
He was set to fight at UFC 313, I believe.
Yep.
He's 16-0. He's 25 years old. Man, I don't even want to pick this fight, and I feel really disrespectful going the direction that I'm going in. But like, I just feel like sometimes, oh man, I don't know. I'm gonna go with the newcomer, Matsumoto. I'm just thinking about if it was, me or you, Fred, or anybody in the world, you like, this is what you've chosen to do with your life. You're 16 fights in, you've never lost a fight. This is what, and then you get the call. You get the call to come in and fight like a legend, and it's like, I don't know, like, yeah, it's a magical, beautiful story. So not only like I love Rob Font, but like I love the story of the guy that's set on his quest and his path, getting the opportunity of a lifetime last minute and coming in and fighting somebody that could potentially pop him right into the top 15 in his first fight in the UFC at 25 years old. So Matsumoto, that's my pick. How he takes this one, just based on the grit of Rob Font, he's just not going to go away very easily. Like you said, like, you have some people that just don't go away. And it's just, I think it's built into the DNA of fighters. I've trained so many fighters in Thailand, and some of them look and train harder than you'd ever see. And they're
Mm.
scary to look at, but when they get in the ring, they just don't have that. They don't have that thing. The reason why I was called upon, because I was that crazy guy that had the nickname Never Die, because I just wouldn't go away. I'd broken my legs in fights and just kept on going, and broken my nose 9 times, and like, it just didn't matter. I just didn't know how to stop. And I think Rob Font is that guy. So I don't think you're putting this guy away without like absolutely everything you got. So not knowing Matsumoto too much, seeing he has some subs, I think we're going to see some ground, some sprawls, some action,
Yep.
back and forth, and I think it's going to go to decision. And maybe through the grace of the MMA gods, it's a split decision for Matsumoto. So Rob Font, at least, can feel like half okay.
Yeah. I as you were talking and thinking like, "Oh man, where do I go?" I put my pick on screen too cuz I want you to say I feel you. I'm going with Matsumoto also. And a hard pick for me because the Fonta Fonta's like, it's hard for me to root against him. I feel like he's one of those fighters who, because of his toughness, right? It's really really hard for me to not select him to win, right? I see him as a really strategic fighter. And in fact, I would say from what I've seen of Matsumoto also, both of these guys tend to be fighters um, who think, they're not. I, Sometimes it's fun to watch the fighters who go for like takedowns just without thinking, right, and throw themselves into like situations with like reckless abandon, right? I think there's that's a fun element of the sport for both of these guys. I mean, for Font definitely, and for what I've seen of Matsumoto, it really does seem like these are real strategic mixed martial arts fighters. They really enter into fights thinking. You know, they're not like the reckless, abandoned fighters. I guess the piece for me, and I know Font has better reach. I also feel like, I don't know, Matsumoto, I had looked, and I might be off by a year or so, but I feel like he's like 12 or 13 years younger than Font, right? And that uh, there were a couple. If it's a few years, I think age is really hard to look away from. But if you took me and put me in a ring with a 32-year-old, I I do believe there would be some difference, particularly with my ability to go the distance, even if we were fairly well matched. Or you take a 35-year-old or a 38-year-old and put them in the ring with a 25-year-old. There are real human elements that, even if you are incredibly well trained, are just hard to go against, right? So you take somebody who's 16 and 0, and again, I get it. There are different experiences across different MMA programs, but 16 and 0 is 16 and 0. I mean, it is hard to argue with that, right? So I feel that, given the fact that both are really strategic thinkers and fighters, it's going to be hard to win on a large mistake that any one fighter makes. Given the age difference, given the fact that they're both like real Chad fighters, I am going to take Matsumoto. I do feel a split decision is quite possible as an end result. Our friend Moogie, I'm just pulling up his picks. Moogie says he sees the fight going the distance too. He's leaning towards Font for Font's experience, his expertise, his background, the fact that he is the type of fighter that he is. So we're not all aligned in this one, but we do all see this as being a strategic, lengthier fight. The two of us see it going to Matsumoto, and our friend Moogie sees it going to Font. So
Yeah, the
there you
one
go.
thing here that I think that we kind of overlook is the star-struck
Yes.
effect of being in the UFC for the first time, you know? So, but I think that there's different types of people out there, and they act different there. So as long as he can, you know, get over the lights, the stage, it's the big show kind of thing, and kind of can shut that off, then I think, yeah, I think he's got it. But yeah, we'll see how that one goes. But that one also is very exciting for me. Rob Font is a legend and always brings the fight.
So as we were chatting, I was going back channel with Johan, who is our smart contract dev, and yesterday the the Menafield and Walker fight was on the DAP. So I'm not. So we're gonna just we'll talk Menafield and Walker, and hopefully, right, we'll see that back in the DAP again. But if you've got a Silva and Bagdassaran pick, feel free to share it too. I I have not done any research on that fight, simply because I wasn't prepared to talk about it. But if you have a thought on it and want to speak to it, feel free to add it in. But how about Menafield and Walker? What's your thinking there?
Yeah, I think also another fun, really fun fight for multiple different reasons. First of all, it's light heavyweight, so there's some you know, possibilities of thunder and lightning, you know,
Yes.
shaking some chins. So that's always fun. Walker, late minute, you know, last minute replacement. So that's exciting as well. I think he was preparing for a fight in another organization at a different weight
Yep.
class. He's 6-0, which is very interesting, you know, and he has 100% finish rate. So here's a
Yes.
fact for all of you guys. He's only gone out of the first round once, and that was in the second round. He has less than 15 minutes of fight time in his
Correct.
professional career in active fight time, which is crazy. So if you think about like experience, Walker just doesn't have it. He probably has it in the gym, and he has like all this knockout power and you know, submissions and everything else, and like he's yeah, but he doesn't have much experience, which is fine. You don't need the experience if you keep on knocking people out and submitting them. You just don't need that. But what happens when you take him into the deep waters? And yeah, and then we have Mansfield that I think he's been around quite some time. I think he's had some ups and downs in his career. Out of here's some fun facts. Out of his last nine, eight of them, out of his last nine wins, eight of them have been TKOs or
Yep.
KOs. So like
Yep.
really fun KO fighter. He's on a losing streak right now. Age again is coming into play here. He's the
Yes.
same age as Rob Font, so he's 37 years old. A lot of miles on that, so 37 in fight years is quite considerable as an athlete because the grinding nature of this sport. So this one I think is an exciting fight too because we don't know Walker so well, and he's coming in. He's had a lot of interviews. He's got a bit of personality, so he's been
Yeah.
fun to watch with the
Yeah, it is.
interviews. And I think he believes in himself. He also says that it could go both ways. I like that humble nature in people,
Yeah.
that says, "Listen, I'm coming in. This is a new place for me, but I'm a confident, good fighter. But also know it can go both ways." I don't know what the odds are. I think the odds are in Manifield's favor or should be in his favor.
I believe so. In fact, at the time when I put it together, the lines weren't drawn yet. In fact, I'm gonna pull it up now and just see where they are uh, right at this moment. As I'm doing that, one thing that I'll share first, I love betting on new guys. I think it's a ton of fun to to look to potential rising stars, right, and see where their capabilities lie and what they're also actually able to do. I do, and I also love fighters with personality, right? You you've got to be able to sell yourself, and if you can do it with a little bit of humbleness too, then I mean that to me is awesome.
Yeah,
Um,
Chael
yeah.
Sonnen always said it best. This is the fight business, and you're picking fights with people. So you better go out there and pick fights. So this isn't a thing where it's like you sit back and you wait for the matchmakers to make this. You need to pick fights with people, and you need to be loud and proud about it. And it's really disappointing because some of my favorite fighters as fighters just don't have that
Yeah.
mentality. So Mateus Gamrot, he's like one of my favorite fighters of all time. I think he should be fighting for belts and stuff. He's not getting opportunities because he's just not that personality that's out there yelling and screaming and saying words. And you don't need to speak English if you think about it. Like Charles Oliveira, he'd always just know a few English words, and those are the things. The champ has a name. It's Charles Oliveira. That's all he needed to
Yeah.
say, and that just kept on going,
That's
And then
right.
he started his OnlyFans account, and then it's just like then that's you don't just get in front of the cameras. You have all these social media platforms and start
Right.
picking fights with people because Chael Sonnen didn't deserve one damn fight he ever was in, but he got every single big fight ever, and he
Exactly.
did it because he picked the fight.
That's right. And I think the thing that we have to remember is that most sports are driven by engagement and by the athlete connection to the crowd. In MMA, right? In any individual athlete sport, that connection not only makes a huge difference for placement on cards, right? And who you get to go up against, but also, I mean, I said it earlier, also can swing fights. And, so that is huge. So just to go back to the lines, Menafield is favored at 240, right? So yeah, I mean, seems realistic to me and what I might expect. I just went back to look at the Cejudo and Song Yadong line. It has barely moved. It's still 270 in Yadong's favor. So I've got my BetMGM app up. I am going to take that. Right when we get off this call, because that is
Me as well.
it is amazing to me. And if I lose it, I will happily lose it because the odds seem um, so much different than what I'd expect. I would take Walker on this one, and for me, first of all, I love these fights because I love in the light heavyweights and heavyweights how hard these guys can hit. I mean, it is. I mean, I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end, but it is crazy to watch some of these KOs. And I think, uh, when you're talking about light heavyweights and heavyweights, there's a lot of potential for those 30-second replays, right? You were talking about Walker's fight time, right? Yeah, I think that, when these are also fights for me where if things go beyond the first round, I start to change my opinion a little bit, right? And so I think if Walker can come in hot and land some solid hits and put Menafield in a position where we see or can get in a position for a KO, amazing. If the fight starts to leak into round 2 or 3, I might shift away from Walker, and not because I don't believe in Walker's ability, just because of the fight time element. It's hard to adjust to a longer fight, particularly for some of these big guys, just from an endurance standpoint. And so I'm leaning towards Walker to take him in this, but I would say I would lean towards him with the caveat that if we start to see a fight that's extending midway into that second round, I might actually flip my pick. I'm a little bit of like a waffle on this one. I think, and so Moogie agrees. Moogie takes Walker to win this fight as well. It seems like we're all leaning towards the new guy for this one.
I didn't actually make my pick, sir.
Oh, you didn't. Oh, sorry. Okay. Was it?
I think I was leading towards that way with Walker, and I love how you feel about this fight as well, and I think I feel this way too. That if he can like pop him on the chin a couple of times and then take him out really early, because that's what he's known to do
Yeah.
in his past fights that we just haven't seen unless you're watching the other circuits that are out there. But then where this comes to play for me, and it's like the Rob Font thing too, but it feels a little bit different. You're on a 2-fight losing streak. You've been around forever. You're 37 years old. It's like, this is it, right? If
Yeah.
he loses this third one, like you can almost guarantee, like maybe he has a couple of other fights on his contract, but like it won't really amount to much probably.
A good point.
And they might even buy him out. And so this like is a do or die thing for him. Rob Font, I think, has got enough money. He can retire. He can go
Yes.
away. But Manafield, I don't think he's quite there. And I think like a couple more fights, if he can get them, would really, set up the future for his next stage of his life. And going in with that desperation and that thought, I'm going to pick him. I'm going to pick him
All
for the
right.
win. I'm going to say that this is going to be a slugfest, and like the guns are going to be shot really early, and I think it's going to be a knockout and can go both ways. Like early, I think this is a first round finish, knockout, like done and exciting and fun. And Manafield, I just feel might be able to channel those MMA gods to give him give him the win, to give him a couple more fights before his career is done. But hopefully exciting enough for Walker to get a little bit of the limelight as he's lying there.
So, so amazing. All right. So, just to go over then. So, Chris, you've got Cejudo, you've got Hernandez, you've got Matsumoto, and you've got Menafield. Is that correct?
That is correct. Those are my picks.
Awesome. All right. So, I'm going to lock them in here. So, we've got Cejudo, we've got Hernandez. All right. We have got Matsumoto. I'm actually putting it in the chat. Matsumoto. That way we can lock it in. And Menafield. And I've got really the same with the exception of me going with Walker in the last. So Hernandez, I've got Matsumoto, and I've got Walker. Now, so I just popped them into the abstract chat, and so we can see how we do after fight night's over. Because it's on our DAP, I am I did not do any research. I can tell you that Silva is a huge favorite on this fight. He's at like almost 600, so clearly Vegas sees this as a huge win opportunity for Silva. Do you have any thoughts on this fight just from your knowledge of the space, or is this not a fight that you had looked towards?
Yeah, yeah, sure. I was looking at this fight as well. So Juan Silva, he's tried and tested as well. Still young, I think a couple years in the sport, but he's a banger and a brawler. And looking at, and you said his name. I'm not even going to try to say that name. Not a chance. If it's over six
Bagdasaryan?
letter, yeah. If it's over 6 letters, I'm not even trying it. Um, so yeah, it seems that he's had a lot of canceled fights in the past couple of
Yeah.
years and has not been very active. He looks mean and gnarly, so maybe it's going to be a fun fight. But yeah, I would definitely pick Juan Silva all the way, and I think the odds are probably right. 6-1 might be right about the
They
right
agree.
thing.
Yeah, they certainly do. So and then friends, I just locked in my picks. I clicked submit. I've got them set and ready to go. I am looking forward to seeing how this fight night plays out. Let me stop sharing. Yeah, I mean, Chris, it's been awesome to chat with you and not only kind of hear your story, but also kind of share some picks and kind of get your insight into fight night tonight. I want to encourage everyone to check out what Chris has been working on. Follow Numa Social. Stay up to date with what they're putting together. Chris, anything from you that you want to share? Is kind of like we wrap up our stream.
No, I love what you guys are doing. I'd love to take part whenever you need me. As you guys grow, and you certainly will, I'd love to be the guy live on location whenever
Oh,
you
would
need
love
me.
that.
I love talking to these fighters, usually poolside, before the fight and after the fight. Would love to be there and
What's the
like help
next
out in that
event?
way.
What's the next
Um,
event you're going to
I
go to?
don't have I don't have anything booked, but yeah, I can book something in pretty soon. Like I'm overdue for something. So like I said, I'm always in Abu Dhabi in October, so that's
Okay.
a given. I'm there 100%. So whatever kind of content you want me to do there,
Ooh, love it.
I would gladly do that, and then I'll let you guys know the next events that I'm going to. But yeah, so.
Amazing.
But other than that, yeah, just happy to be on the show. Really love your platform. Look forward to participating here. I really love what Abstract's doing and really love the space. So that's it. Yeah, and if you guys are into playing games and social good and part of the NFT ecosystem, whether you're a Bored Ape or you're a Pudgy Penguin or even if you're part of any kind of Web3 or Web2 community, yeah, we want to help you guys build different tools, and we also want to steal the compute from your phones to help social matters with the United Nations. So, yeah, go check out Numa Social. There's lots of big games. We don't want to do any kind of fundraising with VCs and stuff like that. So we want our users to get the lion's share of the shares of what we're doing. So that's how we play.
Amazing. So, everyone listening, thank you for joining us. We love putting these streams together. It's fun for us to get to connect with people in the space. It's fun to talk sports. Chris, want to thank you and Numa Social for being great friends and connecting with us and giving up your time. Everybody who's listening or will listen, thank you for your love of what we're building and what the space is building, and your love of all things predictive gaming. We'll see you all next time, and enjoy the rest of your day, evening, weekend. We'll see you soon. Thanks, everyone.